Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair. The revolt was late 9th.
Huh?
The Zanj revolt, late 9th
The
century.
Zanj late 9th century.
Because it started in 863
Right, okay.
AD.
Yeah.
Anyway, my question is, there were quite a few, but I'll limit it in the interest of time to this one. In that the Prophet ﷺ, he sent his companions to the protection of an African king who he praised, and he adopted Zayd bin Haritha, who's described by Ibn Jawzi, Tanwir Qabish, as a very dark-skinned person.
With the pudgy nose.
With a flat nose.
Yeah.
And he then, when Zayd and Ayman, Baraka al-Habashiyya, was an Ethiopian woman who he described as his mother, Ummi Ba'da Ummi. Naam. And when Ayman and Zayd bin Haritha married, and Zayd was also called Hibbu Rasulillah, the beloved of the Messenger of Allah. And when Ayman, who was African, and Zayd, who was probably from the black Arab, Arab al-Sauda, they had Usama bin Zayd, who was also described as a black person of dark complexion, but he was called Hibbu Rasulillah, the beloved of the Messenger of Allah. And so Zayd he adopted as his son before the practice was outlawed. Ayman, who was African, he called his mother. He sent his companions to the care of an African king who he praises for his justice and fairness, etc. Why do you think those things are not highlighted in our history, even in our study of the Sirah? They're kind of passed over. Why do you think that's the case?
I think that the reason that they're not really studied is because Muslims largely have adopted a sort of blackout policy. Is where we think, again, but as I mentioned before, and I've come across this and gotten this reaction quite a bit over the years, is that once you start talking about something black or black people, then there's this visceral reaction that you get from a lot of Muslims. You know, it's like, Islam is not a racist religion, right? You know, it's like, and it only happens when you talk about blackness. But you can talk about any other people. You can talk about Egyptian. You can talk about being, Syrian. You can talk about being Palestinian. You understand? You know, you mention all that, but not, African or whatever, Nigerian, Sudanese, whatever it may be. There's a visceral reaction that people have. And I think that people feel that to highlight the color of Zayd ibn Haritha or Osama ibn Zayd, or even, people don't even know, too, like Amr ibn As, his mother was Ethiopian. His mother, Amr ibn As, the one who opened up Egypt. And his brother was Uqba ibn Nafi', who opened up the rest of North Africa, established Qayrawan. He was he had the same mother. These are half African Arabs, but they weren't talked about in the books of Sirah as being African. Why? Because their fathers were Arabs. You see, so there was intermarriage quite a bit. You see, and so it's not talked about that much, but people will constantly remind you the Prophet was white, right? It's okay to talk about that and highlight the Prophet's color, but when you talk about anybody else's color, especially if it's black, then it's an issue. It's why are you talking about? It has nothing to do with Islam. Okay, well, why is it calling the Prophet white has anything to do with Islam? If calling Sahaba black and highlighting their color has nothing to do with Islam, then we shouldn't be talking about the Prophet being white. And that in itself is debatable too. That term, again, the problematic term. We know what white means in our cultural, in our milieu. We know what it means, right? The Prophet wasn't European, right? And he wasn't black either. He wasn't an African, because that's what we say. Black, we think African, and white, we think European. The Prophet wasn't either of those things, And so we should stop translating Azhar alone as white, right? If anything, it's like Imam Zahabi said that anytime the Arabs said Abyad, they meant Hantiyulon. They meant this weak colored. So the Prophet was weak colored, right? Not white, not black either, but he was wheat colored, because in a few narrations they call him abyad, like white, and even abyad in the Arabs was an offensive term, it's derogatory to call somebody white. This is exactly why they didn't call the Persians and the Syrians and the Persians, Syrians, and who else? But basically the people who the Arabs considered to be white, they didn't see themselves as a white race. You see, the ones that they called white, they actually didn't call them white. They called them red, right? So the people of Syria, and the Romans, the Europeans, they were red people. That's what the Arabs called them. They called them ahmar. That's when in the hadith, بعثت إلى الأحمر وأسود، بعثت إلى الأسود وأحمر. I've been sent to the black and to the red. The red is a reference to the white people, right? Because you didn't call a person white because to say the person's up there, it meant you had baras. It meant you had vitiligo, discoloration, and loss of pigmentation. Remember, the Arabs were largely brown people, right? Right. So it's like, I'm not abyad. You call me white. I'm not white. They found it unattractive. Pale white was an unattractive color. The Prophet he didn't look like a Syrian. He didn't look like a Persian. He didn't look like a European. He didn't. That wasn't his white. It was not. So I just think that like I said, I think it's sort of as a blackout. It's like we only get bothered by race when we start talking about black. And this is what I'm talking about, this perennial black antipathy. This perennial disdain for blackness and darker skin, right? That is something that we have to kind of work through. We kind of try to work it out on some level, so